Just like the if statement, we can also nest a for loop inside of another for loop. Now let's take a look at this example. We can have for I in range 5. And inside this loop, we can have another loop for j in range, let's see, 2. Now let me print out the j's. So I can have print j, and I can have print I. So let's run the program. And as you can see, we have 0, 0, 1, 1. No, but let me explain what happens. So what happens is that first we'll have an outer loop and we have an inner loop. What happens is that this outer loop is going to loop once, print out the value of I, and at the start, the value of I is 0, which is how we came about with this 0. Now, this inner loop is going to loop complete. It's going to loop to the end, and this means that it's going to print 0 and 1, and this is how it came about with this 0 and 1. After that, the outer loop is going to loop the second time. This time around, the I is at the value 1, and this is how it came about with the 1 here. And then this inner loop is going to loop 2 times, that is 0 and 1, and we'll have 0 and 1 here. Now, the outer loop is going to loop again, and this is the third loop, meaning that I is at the value of 2, and this is how it came about with the 2. We'll have our 0 and 1, and this goes on and on until the outer loop completes its loop. Then the program terminates. Now we're going to be using the same concept to generate our multiplication table. In the earlier example we can only generate the multiplication table for a given value. But with the nested loop, we can restructure our program in such a way that we can generate a range of multiplication tables. So first, let's rewrite the multiplication table that we wrote earlier, where we have for num in range, we'll have 1 to 13, meaning that we want to generate 1 to 12. And here we have result is equal to, I'm using f string, we'll have our first placeholder, second placeholder, and the third placeholder. Here I'm going to put the value, and here I'm going to put the num, and we'll put x to represent multiplication. Well, first I'm going to provide the variable value. So we can have value is equal to, we'll specify the value. So here is equal to, then we have value multiplied by num. Now we'll have our print statement, which is print result. Of course, this is going to generate a 5 times table for us. But in this case, we want to generate a range of multiplication tables, maybe 1 times table, 2 times table, 3 times table, 3 times table, so that when we run the program, it's going to generate all these multiplication tables once. And to go about this, we're going to be using a nested loop. So first, let me comment out this. So here we can have something like for value in range 1 and 13. I'm trying to generate multiplication tables 1 times all the way to 12 times table. I'll provide a colon. So let me remove this value here, and I'm going to remove the comment. And this time around, I want this for loop to be inside of the outer for loop of this other for loop. So I'm going to hit the tab key. This means that this particular for loop is nested inside of this outer for loop. So what it means is that I don't have to manually provide the values. So this outer loop is going to produce the value, and then the inner loop is going to produce the multiplication table for that value. So let's run it and see how it goes. So this is our multiplication table. This is the 1 times table. This is the 2 times table. But all of them are clustered and making it a bit difficult to identify the beginning and the end. To handle this scenario, I can have something like immediately after the inner loop, I can say print. Here I can just provide hyphens. So let's run it. So this time around, you can see the separations. And I can as well decide to label each multiplication table. So before the inner loop executes, I can have something like print. Here I will have multiplication table 4. I'll put a comma and then write value. Then I can as well copy this print statement and paste it below. So let's see how it works. So you can see multiplication table for 1, multiplication table for 2, and so on. So now we have our multiplication tables. Now next, we're going to be looking at another powerful looping construct in Python, which is called the while loop.